This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob blows a conspiracy theory out of the sky. He's just praying for the aliens. Barb says clever things cleverly. And Tim is helping Buzz punch that guy, you know that guy, over and over and over again. I'm your host, Brian Gregory, and I never say anything funny anyway, so I'm not going to this week. So there you go.
Oh.
This is, let's see, this is episode 96 for July 23rd, 2014 of the Virtual Skeptics. If you're watching us, thank you. I'm not going to apologize this week until later. Let's see. If you're watching and you want to participate, you can participate in a number of fanciful ways and some regular ways as well. If you're on Twitter, you can comment with hashtag, actually it's called tweeting, isn't it? Tweeting with hashtag Virtual Skeptics. And if you're on the YouTubes, you can comment on this video feed. If you're on the Google Plus, I think you can comment as well. And also there's a Q&A app, which you can ask questions. If they're snarky, they probably won't be on the air. If they're funny, they will definitely be on the air. Thank you for watching. Okay, so let's get started. I've got other people here with me. Let me introduce them. Oh, yes, okay. Bob, that's Bob. Bob Blaskiewicz, CSI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger, and Skeptical Humanities. Yes, I'm doing this great. And Swift blog contributor. Next up, we got Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality. Next up, Tim Farley. You guys know him. Former JREF fellow, blogger at SkepTools, Skepticality contributor and creator of What's the Harm, and our every other week regular, Barb Drescher. Former psychology instructor, blogger at ICBS Everywhere, and contributor to numerous skeptical projects, including The Odds Must Be Crazy. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Hi, Brian.
Yeah, see, they actually do speak. Hi, how you doing? Let's do the things we do every week, starting with Tim has a trivia question.
I have a trivia question. Oh, yeah, I looked in my files of skeptic history for anniversaries that were coming up. And there is a 60th anniversary that's coming up Monday, Tuesday, something like that. And it is the invention of a device. A famous device was patented by a chiropractor 60 years ago this week, on July 27th, 1954. What device am I talking about?
Is it safe for work?
Patented by a chiropractor. Yes, it's pretty safe.
I noticed you said pretty safe. Pretty safe. That's funny. So, answer that on the Twitters or on the comments or whatever, and we will give you something very special later in the show for answering it correctly. Be the first one to answer correctly. Now, also, if you'd like, you can guess on the videos behind me. There's two of them, so you need to guess them both to get it right. And then you'll get also another amazing prize. No, you won't, but hey. You'll get our respect and adoration, I guess. So, is that all the stuff we do? Yeah, okay. So first up, Bob. Bob's got something he's going to talk about. And it sounds interesting. Something about conspiracy theories.
Something about conspiracy theories is right.
Oh, yeah. Nice pictures.
All right. So as I started gathering stories for a report on the conspiracy theories surrounding Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 that was downed into Ukraine last week, I found that the scourge of the American Southwest, if you could bring up an image, Ben Radford, had written about the conspiracy theories related to the incident on his Discover blog, totally ruining today's Virtual Skeptics. Thanks ever so much, Ben. Actually, it's a fun article. It touched on a wide variety of airline-themed conspiracy theories, from chemtrails to Amelia Earhart. He did, however, fail to mention that planes are well known to be held up and operate by means of magic, which I thought was a pretty big oversight for a skeptic. Anyway, the conspiracy theories that have sprung up around Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 are varied and kind of inevitable. And as many conspiracy theories do, they depend on the appearance of significance or relatedness between what are probably unrelated phenomena. The first thing I think that occurred probably to most people was, hey, another Malaysia Airlines flight? I mean, is that...
Yeah.
You know,
That's the first thing I thought.
I never heard of them until a few months ago, honestly, or never noticed them, right? So while this may be confirmation bias, some people would clearly add, significance to it, imbue it with added significance. So my second thought was, someone's going to claim that the wreckage of MH17 is Malaysia Flight 370, and Bob's your uncle. Bring up the next one. Don't you know that's one of the first conspiracy theories that came out? As far as I can tell, you still have one missing airliner. But, it's just, moving the shells around, right? So, is that it? Let me see. So that was Ben's next one.
Okay.
Bob's your uncle.
There you go.
Yes. All right. So, when you see, yes. So then you are going to see after that people hunting for excuses to populate the plane in the Ukraine. Go back, you weasel shit.
You said the next one, and I went to the next one.
No.
This is why we prepare, Bob.
All right. You should come to rehearsal, Bob.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You don't have a rehearsal.
All right. So then you've totally ruined my joke.
I'm sorry, Bob.
You
Please
suck.
forgive me.
That's all right.
Tell it anyway.
Okay,
Nobody
so
saw
anyway,
that.
then you see the people hunting for excuses to populate the plane in the Ukraine, which fell mainly on the plane, with the passengers of Flight 370. And suggestive details emerge, probably out of someone's butt. For instance, there was a report from Raw Story that a rebel leader had said the bodies found around MH17 smelled of decay and had been drained of blood, suggesting that there were vampires or something.
Somebody's been watching The Strain.
Yeah. So according to David Ferguson, quote, if the rebel leader's assertion sounds like a plot twist from a particularly far-fetched spy film, that's because it was. In an episode of the UK TV series Sherlock, an airplane loaded with corpses was brought down from the sky in order to convince a group of saboteurs that their encryption codes had not been cracked by the government. So the real question is, 1, what did Cumberbatch know, and when did he know it? And 2, why did you jump on that picture again? Okay, anyway. So
it's also the plot of a sci-fi book from like 28 years ago or something like that called Millennium.
Wasn't there a
Fringe
episode
Millennium
as well?
There was a good film on that, yeah.
Where time travelers travel into planes, put corpses on them, take all the people off to the future where the human race needs them, and lets the plane crash with fake corpses on it.
Didn't that movie have Chris Christopherson in it?
Yes.
Yes, it did.
Oh my!
One of the Charlie's
Cheryl
Angels.
Ladd.
Yep.
Cheryl Ladd, yeah.
And Bob, if you're so worried about this joke being ruined, why did you tweet it earlier?
Good point.
Burn.
Okay, so you got me.
But the vampire thing is The Strain.
Yeah.
Well,
the plane lands and the people on it are all dead, and then they're not.
Yep. And now I have to say that there was a Fringe episode where the plane lands and there was actually everyone's dead on the plane, which is same thing.
See, okay, and this is one of the problems when the story pre-exists the event itself. There's a good chance you're looking at some sort of fictional story, right? So you see this all the time that people who are prone to conspiracy theories often seem to have a hard time distinguishing between fiction and reality. Whatever little thing in your brain, the little switch that goes on that says, hey, this is imaginary, doesn't seem to go on for them. So they see that, there was my favorite example of this was the conspiracy theory that aliens were putting plots into the heads of Star Trek The Next Generation writers in order to prepare us for what was coming, right? So that's why he perceived agency behind the plots, conspiratorial agency behind the plots of Next Generation.
Which is
Anyway.
called the Writers Guild.
Well, it's the Writers Guild, and I knew that someone was going to say that the moment it came out of my mouth because my brain doesn't work. Okay, so it also we see that the swapping out of the bodies is a substitution narrative. We see it in other conspiracy theories, especially varieties of 9/11 conspiracies. Sometimes planes are substituted, different planes hit, or passengers are escorted off en route to the crashes or something like that. So it's a common trope that we see. It's a way of saying that what you see is not what you're seeing.
I have a question.
Sure.
Now, it's comparatively unusual for a plane to land and for everyone in the plane to be dead. As I understand it, it's not that unusual that when a plane crashes or is shot down, that everyone in the plane will be dead.
Yeah, it seems to be unnecessary, doesn't it?
Just a little.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I think you can pretty much expand that to include anything that's got people in it and falls.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's survivors, I guess, maybe, but,
Some people have gone over Niagara Falls in barrels and lived. Okay, should I just end this abomination of a segment?
No.
Keep it moving.
All right, so
move along now.
Oh,
I'm just going to randomly advance your slides. If you don't point it out, nobody's going to notice because it's not on the big screen yet. So
Okay, so other conspiracies find significance in not the airline, but in the timing of the crash, saying that it was a way of distracting the world from the invasion of Gaza with the stunning gaze of Benedict Cumberbatch's eyes. No.
Yes, which
the invasion of
everyone is
Gaza, which
distracted
took
by
place
right
on
now.
the same day as the shootdown. The case was made by Global Research's Matthias Chang. Could you bring up the next one? There you go. The purpose of the MH17 crash is to, quote, divert attention from the war crimes committed by Zionist Israel in the biggest crime scene at the moment, Gaza, where mass murder is taking place against innocent men, women, and children. The headlines of the Zionist-controlled mainstream media. God, it's like every single stereotype of conspiracy theorist is smashed into here. Mainstream
isn't it
media.
amazing how no one has covered that Gaza thing at all?
I know. You can totally. You couldn't find it. On MH17 and away from Gaza so that Israel may continue their wanton massacres. But this is not to say that the deliberate murder of the crew and passengers of MH17 is not a heinous crime. It is! But this false flag operation was committed to achieve bigger agendas, one of which is to divert attention from the heroic resistance by the Palestinians against Israel. I wonder if he's taken sides. So yeah, it's the Jews. So perhaps the most pernicious and dangerous conspiracy theories I've come across are the ones that are being propagated by Russian state-owned media. For instance, that the attack was actually an assassination attempt on, next slide, Russian President Vladimir
Which
Putin.
is the best picture ever.
That's awesome.
That is an awesome picture. That would
Yeah.
be a great assassination attempt, too.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there isn't a picture of Putin chasing the bear.
Yeah, I was going to say, like
It's probably
a few minutes later, he was gnawing on the bear's neck.
Yeah.
But yeah, so according to Interfax and Russia's state-owned Channel 1, they say that they advanced the theory of a Putin assassination attempt. Russian media reported that Putin's plane and Malaysian airliner had crossed the same point on their flight paths near Warsaw, about half an hour apart, and that the planes had similar contours. They look like planes. I mean, yeah, it's the dumbest. It's
they
so
were both
dumb.
planes, huh?
I know, and they're they're both like.
Plain
And the
ones.
thing is, it's not like they were even like physically ever close to each other, or even temporally. It's just half an hour. It's the merest whiff of something like a connection. But the problem is that this is what the Russians. Okay, the ones who, if there are people who are not using the internet, this is what they're getting. This is the official line. This is the drum that's being banged on. So it's going to be the the default position for a lot of people. Also, it has the added bonus from the Russian perspective of flattering the Russian perspective, that they're not responsible for it, or that they didn't support and help shoot this down, or that they're backing the wrong horse if it was the rebels. It looks like it was the rebels who shot it down. There seems to be no argument that it was hit by a missile. I saw footage of the I think it was the inside of the fuselage, and it looked like you know, there clearly had been shrapnel that was denting the inside of the fuselage, you know. So it looks like it was an explosion, just one strong enough to make those dents. But yeah, it seems like it was the Russian rebels, and I think the system that they're supposed to be using would be too hard for them to use by themselves. But, you know, who knows? We still really don't know. The bodies are starting to be shipped back to everywhere. The other one you hear is the really unfortunate coincidence that there were so many AIDS researchers on the flight, and so people are saying, well, big pharma or whatever, you know, they didn't want the cure for AIDS to get out.
Well, you know, what are the odds?
You know, so anyway, that's what I got.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I love that story, if not just for the bear chasing Putin picture, which is, you know, my
That
favorite.
is awesome.
Yes. So thanks, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Up next, Eve. Eve is going to. Oh wow! Look at this. I see a name I recognize.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Something to do with pork.
Something like
ham.
that. Yeah.
Ham.
Well, in shocking news this week, Ken Ham said something stupid. No, really, it's true. Renowned debate loser Ken Ham of Answers in Genesis, the Creation Museum, and the hypothetical Ark Encounter is upset about the huge great gobs of money that are spent in an effort to find extraterrestrial life. And he suggests that, in fact, the space program is just a secularist, evolutionist plot. Now, I'm not going to do my patented Ken Ham impression because I apparently it upsets Australians, some of whom have swords. So
Yeah,
I'll
they do.
just do it without the Ken Ham impression.
Oh,
Of course, Ham says, secularists are desperate to find life in outer space. The search for extraterrestrial life is really driven by man's rebellion against God in a desperate attempt to supposedly prove evolution. Well, obviously that's the reason. Because knowledge, discovery, and finding out stuff are stupid and worthless. And a huge scientific conspiracy to boot. Because all science, as I'm sure you've all suspected, all science is basically just a cover for big evolution. It's all just used to hide the fact that there's only a teeny, tiny, enormous mountain of evidence for evolution.
Little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a small
So,
one.
according to Ham, shills for big evolution, like Charles Bolden, the current administrator of NASA, whom Ham calls Charles Borden, believe that it's unlikely that we're unique in the vastness of the universe. Secularists, says Ham, cannot allow Earth to be special or unique. That's a biblical idea. He then quotes a passage of Isaiah that doesn't actually say that at all. What it says is, who created the heavens? Who is God? Who formed the earth and made it? Who has established it? Who created it? Who did not create it in vain? Who formed it to be inhabited? I am the Lord, and there is no other. which says the Lord is unique, not Earth and not humans.
Well, you can certainly trust him to interpret the Bible for you.
Yeah, whatever.
Christ.
Ham doubts that there is plant or lower animal life elsewhere in the universe, but admits there's no clear scriptural proof for this, but he's pretty damn sure there's no intelligent life anywhere else. Now, me, I'd be impressed if someone found intelligent life in Petersburg, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Ham, that's where the Creation Museum is. Ham says Earth was uniquely created for humans by God. Ham says, quote, "You see, the Bible makes it clear that Adam's sin affected the whole universe. This means that any aliens would also be affected by Adam's sin. But because they're not Adam's descendants, they cannot have salvation. One day the whole universe will be judged by fire, and there will be a new heavens and earth. God's Son stepped into history to be Jesus Christ, the God-man," which is like the worst superhero, well, whatever, "to be our relative and to be the perfect sacrifice for sin, the savior of mankind. Jesus did not become the God Klingon or the God Martian, exclamation point. Only descendants of Adam can be saved." Okay, first of all, I'm not sure Klingon's actually a planet. Secondly, in a recent post, Hams complained that headlines have said that he said aliens are going to hell. He was particularly irked by an Illinois atheist, whom he doesn't name but is clearly the friendly atheist Hemant Mehta.
Yay!
He's also pissed off by the Huffington Post. And it's true
Aren't
that
we all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, there's certainly common ground there, you know, finally.
Yeah. It's true that he didn't say that aliens are going to hell. He said that aliens would go to hell if they existed, but they don't. He also claimed...
I'm glad he clarified that.
Yeah.
Ken Ham, you suck. You just suck. Okay, sorry. Just had to get that.
He also claims that he didn't say he wanted to defund NASA. He claims in a video that he wants NASA to look for aliens because when they don't find them, that will prove Ham correct. And it's true.
Does his lack of understanding of negatives?
Yeah, well.
Is that why he's not a very good debater?
Well, he began by quoting someone who said, "We'll find a new Earth in 20 years, or within 20 years."
Was it Seth Shostak?
No, I don't think so. It is true that he didn't say NASA should be defunded. However, he did start off his original post by saying, quote, "I'm shocked at the countless hundreds of millions of dollars that have been spent over the years in the desperate and fruitless search for extraterrestrial life," which doesn't sound like he's actually encouraging it, which he then later said he was.
Yeah.
Now, it's hard to wade through all the dumb, but whenever
There's
I
only
hear...
so much time in a day.
I know. Whenever I hear him speak or read something he writes, I keep wondering if he's actually read the Bible, because he keeps coming up with things like, I don't think it says that. And I know he must have read the Bible because he keeps quoting it. So then I start to worry about his reading comprehension. But on top of that, I also keep thinking about how small, weak, and petty Ham seems to think his precious, omnipotent God is. He made countless billions of stars, but could only cope with life existing on one dinky little planet. And if there were life on other planets, his great savior isn't great enough to save them. However, not everyone agrees with Ham, so I want to end by just showing some artist's impressions of what the savior of alien life might be. There are slides.
Okay. Go and sin no more. Is that it? No. Next one?
Yep.
Okay. I like this one. This one is very heartwarming.
Yes, that is sweet.
Oh,
Why is his
so
hands
sweet.
not gray? Huh.
Because the
And then
lazy
the true
Photoshopper.
savior.
really good question.
True savior is the last slide.
Yep, the true savior. Why not Zoidberg?
Why not? You could do worse.
You could do worse than a savior. Okay.
And
Okay,
that's it.
Awesome. I just want to leave Zoidberg up there for a few more seconds.
Yeah, because it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Value-added video podcast thingy.
Did you
Yes.
see there's the side project for one of Adam Savage's side projects is this tested.com where they like build stuff and make stuff and show you how to do it. And one of the projects they did, and they went all through how they did it, was a full Zoidberg costume that somebody built and wore at Comic-Con or something like that. It was kind of awesome. They even had animatronics and
Cool.
nose
Awesome.
pieces, and he had his hands, made clacky noises when he moved them.
Cool.
Very
It was
cool.
really cool. You can find it on YouTube.
That's pretty awesome. I'm gonna have to look for that. Okay, so thanks Eve for that, and it's like Barbara up next, and I've been looking forward to this because this is something that's I'm sure a lot of people who watch this, well, of the few people that do watch this, I'm sure that most of you are annoyed by this exact thing. So take it away, Barbara.
Can you bring up the first slide,
No, I can Zoidberg up.
please?
God, don't trust him for that.
Lucy is stupid.
Lucy is stupid.
Yes, not
It's true.
Lucy.
Tell
but
us
the
what
movie
you really
Lucy.
think, Barb.
This is just one of those things that, every time I love science fiction, and I love time travel stories, and I don't believe time travel is possible.
Yep,
I'm
with you.
I even like some of the stories about, people jacking into their brains and recording stuff, and, the things that I know are completely and utterly impossible, like Paycheck and stuff like that. But this is one of those ones that every time the trailer comes on, I just want to scream at it because it's so stupid. Because, and there's a good reason why I'm so angry about it. Now, of course, the claim is the average person uses 10% of their brain capacity. And that is a very old myth. Okay? We don't use 10% of our brains. If we did, we'd die. Because 90% of our brain would just die. If you don't use it, you lose it. We have brain imaging that shows that we use almost all of our brains most of the time. So we also see some pretty severe behavioral deficits and impairments when just small parts of the brain are harmed, or destroyed or damaged or whatever. But there's a great quote I want to read in 50 Great Myths of Popular Psychology that talks about how pervasive this myth is, and this is what makes me so angry about movies that do this, because it's so pervasive. Whenever those of us who study the brain venture outside the ivory tower to give public lectures, one of the questions we're most likely to encounter is it true that we only use 10% of our brains? The look of disappointment that usually follows when we respond, I'm sorry, I'm afraid not, suggests that the 10% brain myth is one of the most hopeful truisms that refuses to die because it would be so nice if it were true. In one study, when asked about what percentage of their potential brain power do you think most people use, a third of psychology majors answered 10%.
Wow.
Remarkably,
What school was that? Because I
I
want to
don't
make sure my
know.
kids don't
I'd have to look it up. Remarkably, one survey revealed that even 6% of neuroscientists agreed with this claim. I'd like to see how that question was worded, but I wouldn't be too surprised.
Can we get a list of those neuroscientists so we
I know.
never hire them?
Well, you know what they call the guy who finished last in his class of medical school.
Yeah.
Doctor.
Yes. Same thing is true for PhDs. The pop psychology industry has played a big role in keeping this myth alive. For example, in his book How to Be Twice as Smart, Scott Witt wrote, if you're like most people, you're only using 10% of your brain power. So these kinds of myths don't die. And neither does the
I use luminosity. Do I have 15%?
No, that's what I'm about to talk about, actually. If you want to bring up the next slide.
There you go.
That's of course 50 Great Myths of Popular Psychology, which is a great book by Scott Lilienfeld and several other people.
Awesome.
Yep.
And I highly recommend it. It's even being used as a textbook now. But so neither does the myth that you can enhance your brain power by reading some ridiculous book on how to enhance your brain power. The Geek Dad review of this this book, Beyond IQ, which came out yesterday, I believe. Your IQ is largely determined at birth. All of the schooling in the world will have little effect on improving that number. If you can leverage your intelligence to improve mental skills in areas like memory, willpower, and creativity, you can easily stretch your mind beyond its limits, live happier, and be more successful. Okay, for one thing, you can easily stretch your mind beyond its limits. Tells me that the author does not know what the word limit means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For another, let's define successful. And I'll get back to another part of that quote in a second. For example, the successful application of the skills covered in Beyond IQ have been proven to be better predictors of success than any IQ test. And Sudman's goal is to help you apply these skills more proficiently. Okay, so the successful application is better predictors of success. Well, that's a circular definition of success. It reminds me a little bit of paranormal claims.
Yeah.
So how do you know that it was a successful application? Well, because X was successful after doing this. This person was successful. And if person Y is not successful, well, then they did not successfully apply the skills.
I've heard that so many times before in context of other self-help type stuff.
Yeah. And religion. If in faith healing, if you're not healed, then you didn't have strong enough faith.
It's your fault.
Right.
You didn't get healed.
Yeah.
So.
The same thing happens in paranormal claims. You know, we know that it happens because it happens.
Yep.
Why didn't it happen in this case? Well, because
they didn't
do enough, or because, whatever.
Negative juju.
Yeah.
Negative juju.
It also says all of Sundam's conclusions are based on extensive interviews and research with the nation's top psychologists and brain researchers, as well as heavy use of studies found in peer-reviewed journals. Heavy use of how many studies, I'd like to know? 2, maybe? But these things kind of contradict each other, this idea that it's based on evidence and everything that it said before. Because cognitive abilities are what IQ is. So he's kind of conflating some things. And the science actually says that IQ is much more malleable than people think it is. You can improve your IQ, so it's not determined at birth. But these exercises aren't some magic bullet. Everybody wants a magic bullet. They just think if they just, log on to Lumosity, which is bullshit, by the way, or if they just do these few things, that suddenly they'll become super thinkers. And that's just not the way it works. You can improve your brain power. You can improve your IQ if you continue to use your brain. So the more you use your brain, the smarter you become. Imagine that. So this is what you should do. Bring up the next slide. If you want to improve your brain power, this is what science tells you should do. Yes. Exercise regularly. Take care of the body, because the brain's part of the body. Socialize. Talk to people with an open mind. Maybe you'll learn something. Read.
I like how you put that in caps.
Yeah. Fiction, nonfiction, whatever. Fiction actually does a lot for your brain. Do crossword puzzles, Sudoku, logic problems, other puzzles. Those things, if you continue to do them, you don't get we don't see the atrophy later. The brain doesn't age as badly. Play strategy games like Scrabble, card games, Risk, especially with other people. None of these things alone is going to make you smarter, but all of them together are certainly going to help. Just stay active, keep your brain active, think about stuff. if you use your brain's going to be better at what it does. But yeah, reading a book about it and playing games is going to make you better at playing games, and brain games and puzzles and things like that might help you be smarter, but it's not going to be a noticeable difference in and of itself.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the difference between playing games is and playing Luminosity, which is essentially playing games. But I guess, as you were saying,
you'll get better at playing games.
Yeah.
So some of them are going to help in certain areas. I found Sudoku is one of those things that sharpens your logic circuits a little bit, but it might make you better at logic problems, for example, which will help you in life. But it's in such small ways that most of these things are not all that easily measured. And so to say this is all based on science is really kind of a crock. Because science says, yes, if you do this, then you're better at this. Not necessarily that you're better at that. But we do have some findings, that tell us that if you exercise regularly, you're going to stay sharper. If you keep engaging with people and with puzzles and things like that later in life, that you can prevent some of the decay or the atrophy, things like that. But
is this
there's
why
no magic bullet.
Inert recluses are idiots?
Yes. I don't know.
Thought so.
I don't know. I mean, you got to think about the context.
I'm just using words in a way to say things that may or may not have sense. I need to go do some Sudoku, clearly.
No, you need some Scrabble because you need something that's related to words there.
Words, yeah.
Need the word stuffs.
Yep.
Awesome. Good. Sounds like good advice. And it is if you apply it, in very specific way. Yes. And generally, what I was getting out of this is that if they make claims about broad, your brain's going to be better and faster and smarter, take this drug or do this game or read this book and you'll be awesome. Silver bullets. There's no silver bullet. It applies to so many things.
Hold on. Eve was taken up.
Eve was taken up?
Eve was raptured moments
Oh
ago.
my God! It's a miracle! It's a miracle!
They didn't like her. She came back.
And she came into the picture with Bob, and she had a knife.
Eek!
Okay then. Well, thanks, Barb, for that story. That was interesting stuff. Let's see. Tim is next. I guess I get to go last. Oh well. Fine.
Yeah, robots last.
You got some interesting stuff. You got some buzz slapping going on.
Yeah, I got slides and everything.
Ooh, awesome.
I get to catch up on. I don't always do my blog posts first, and then sometimes I do a topic on virtual skeptics and then blog about it later. Sometimes I do it on skepticality and then reuse it here. I mix it up every week, and some weeks I have more than one blog post. So
You wild man.
I'll talk about one of them on here, and the other one gets lost by the wayside. And there was a post that I never talked about on this show back in January about YouTube. And it came up, I retweeted it over the weekend because an interesting thing was happening because of the Apollo 45 anniversary. This weekend, or the last 5 days or whatever, was the anniversary of Apollo 11, the 45th anniversary, 1969, July 1969, and launched on July 16th and landed on the 20th, and technically on Eastern time they walked on the 21st, but what do time zones mean on the moon? But and the reason I bring this up is because a lot of folks were generating all sorts of content. You saw people tweeting the famous Michael Collins photo, and NASA was going crazy over the weekend retweeting. I think somebody was probably live tweeting the actual mission in simulated time. But you would see some news posts like this one, if you go to my first slide, which was on the factually section of oh, now my brain is dying. Gizmodo, IO9. Sorry.
It's just factually.
Sorry, factually. Anyway, it's Matt Novak, the guy that does Paleo Future, which is a very cool blog about weird retro stuff. But anyway, he was looking, obviously, factually does debunkings and weird things that people say are true and are not, or things that people didn't know that are true. And he posted this thing about Buzz Aldrin punching a moon hoaxer in the face. And if you had scrolled down from this part of the screen, there was a video there. Well, strangely enough, that video is in my YouTube channel, right? And the reason it's there is because 2 years ago was the 10th anniversary. September 9th, 2002 was when Buzz Aldrin punched that guy. And if you go, yeah. Brian, go ahead to the next slide and press play on the video, and I'll talk over the video. This is the actual copy of the video that's in my channel. And the reason it's in my channel is there's copies of this video everywhere, right? If you Google it, it's on LiveLeak. There's 10 or 12 copies of it on YouTube. There's short copies. There's long copies. And I was looking for one to link to on my daily Skeptic History post for the 10th anniversary of this punch. And a lot of the ones are pro-conspiracy theory. You know, the comments in them or the title of the video implies that Buzz was wrong or whatever. And I didn't want to link to any of those. I wanted one that had the right facts and actually stated what happened in the video. So lo and behold, I found this one video that had more. If you notice, there's more to this than you normally see. A lot of times you only see the punch. There was a lot more to this where he confronted Buzz. He followed him out of the hotel.
Harangued him. Yeah.
Harangued him. You see the bellman gets between them and tries to tell the guy to buzz off. That's Rodeo Drive, by the way. We had that as a previous trivia question. This is in Hollywood. So I thought, well, it'd be nice to have a copy that showed all this, and lo and behold, one of the copies that had all this extra stuff in it was marked with a button, and we'll show it to you in a second when we get to here comes the good part, where he actually confronts Buzz, and Buzz decides he's had enough, and
boom!
Boom!
Pop right in the
kisser.
Oh, God, you got your butt kicked by a 90-year-old man.
Yeah, he was 72 at the time. But so that's the Buzz Punch video in my channel. And what I blogged about in January is I had posted that in September 2012, and in a year and a half from then or so, it had gotten 500,000 views by January. And the question was, how did I do that with all these other copies out there to get the attention? And if you go to the next slide, there is a thing on YouTube where if people are willing to license their content out and basically say, here's a piece of content, do something with it, they can enable this thing which says remix this video. And there was a copy of this video that had this button enabled. Now, I don't know for sure whether that was correct, but there it was, and I thought, okay. So I created a copy, and I cut off some extra stuff on either end in my channel. And what I did from there to enhance it was I added what is called metadata, and that's what my blog post was all about. The problem with videos and finding videos is how does Google index something like this, right? It needs the text, it needs the title of the video, it needs the description below the video, it needs keywords below the video, it needs all that stuff to figure out what is the context of this video, who should I show it to? And so many people drop the ball on that. And if you go to the next slide, I think, I had a sample in my blog post, and we'll link to it in the show notes so you can go read the blog post. But basically, I made sure I essentially fill in all the boxes, right? Make sure you have good text there. Make sure you have the full name of both people who are involved or whoever's involved or whatever the details are of the video that's involved. Have links to supporting material. In the tags thing in the below, make sure you put relevant tags because that's how YouTube knows to show your video to somebody who's looking at something else. and it also can allow you to put stuff in there that maybe doesn't fit in text-wise into your description. And you fill all that stuff in, and your video will show up in Google better than the other videos, and that's what I did. This is basically SEO, search engine optimization. There's a lot of nitwits on Twitter who say, oh, I'm an SEO expert, and spam people, but SEO fundamentally is a very simple thing of making your content palatable to Google's robots. That's all you're doing. You're making sure the title makes sense.
The robots happy.
Right. We want to make those robots happy because what's the alternative? They come after us. So there's one final thing that you don't see. Now here's the key thing. The one final thing that you don't see in all these boxes is
that you added yakety sax.
No, that would have been cool.
Do it.
Captioning. Closed captioning. Now, YouTube will put captioning on video, and it will do it automatically using an algorithm. And it's so hilariously bad that it inspires memes. People screenshot. I think the next slide is a screenshot of what I assume is an old Doctor Who.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like the Doctor Who, the guy with the flute, which I can't. No.
Yeah, it's the second.
Patrick Troughton.
Yeah, Troughton. Yes, Patrick Troughton. I feel bad I got that wrong.
Yeah, and it says, if you can't read it, you drive a hot dog inductor, which is clearly not what he was saying. Well, it might have been. It's Doctor Who, but it's probably not what he was saying. And you get crazy stuff like that. And the thing is that Google will index the captioning. That's part of why, even hilariously bad, they add the captioning, because some of those words are right. And if it gets a few names right, that will actually make the video show up better. So I thought, well, if I were to caption this video correctly, not only would it help deaf people, hearing impaired people, people who for some reason can't understand Buzz's accent or the voice of the other guy. A lot of the video was recorded on the fly, so it's not quite clear what people are saying in some places. I thought captioning would help people understand the video. And you'd see who was talking and da-da-da-da-da. So I thought, oh, I would caption it. Well, it turns out that there's a nice site, if you go to the next slide, called Amara. It's called Universal Subtitles, but for some reason they had the name Amara. It's amara.org. And it's set up to essentially crowdsource captions. So not only captions, but translating videos into other languages. And you can set it up. This is my video, or my copy of the BART video, embedded in the Amara site, and there's a whole interface there where it makes it super easy for you to automatically, because the problem when you're captioning is you have to get the caption synced with the video, and if you ever tried to transcribe audio, you have to back up and listen to something over and over and over, and keeping things captioned and backing up and going forward is a pain. Well, they've created this nice interface, and it's on the next slide, where you just hit tab when you want to go on to the next thing. And it says editing Japanese because I've already captioned this video. I had to fire it up in the translate mode. But you can see the captions on the left, and in this mode it would have me write the Japanese captions on the right, and they're simple keys, and it would keep it synchronized with the video at the top, so you could watch what was happening if you needed to, and see what the text was of the existing captions and translate it into another language. So this is an awesome tool. I've used it on a couple of different videos, and it makes a huge difference in how many people will find your video if the captions are correct, because now all that text is editable. But the key thing is that you have to put the captions where they can see it. Amara has a way that you can sort of embed their player and show the captions in multiple languages and stuff, but what I really recommend is you download the captions from Amara and then upload them into your YouTube account. And that way they're attached to the YouTube video, and it means if someone watches it on their phone or on their iPad or Roku or wherever the heck they're watching YouTube, those captions will still be available, where Amara is only available in a web browser. So it's very cool. You can help people who are hearing impaired and make your content more visible. And the reason I blogged about it in January, a month or a year and a half later, is because by January the thing had hit 500,000 views. And if you go to the next slide, and the reason I'm talking about it now is because of the Apollo 11 anniversary.
Wow.
Look at that green line at the end.
That's actually just the climate change graph.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Buzz Aldrin hockey stick.
Not funny.
That's funny.
We're all dying.
So, and look at that number at the top. Time watched, 5 years. I've wasted 5 years of people's time. This video at 1.5 minutes apiece. But that was just this weekend. Is that surge at the end? So it was watched 1 million times since in a week. It's now it was at about 700,000 and something on Thursday when I noticed the surge starting to happen. And
it showed up on my Facebook feed.
And
a few times.
It's turned up everywhere. If you look at that Matt Novak post, that was shared 70,000 times. And if you Google Buzz Punch in the Google News, a bunch of news sites picked this up. I think The Week, I guess, is a major news site, and they had a post that was reposted thousands of times. And then people picked the video up too. But none of that would have happened if this video didn't rank in Google for Buzz Aldrin punches a guy. And the reason it ranks is because I filled in those boxes and because I took the time to actually caption the video. So it's an excellent example of where you can help people who are hearing impaired, make your content more accessible, and take advantage of these. This is who knows when somebody's going to find your content and link to it and it's going to go viral like this, but if you're not out there and ready for it, they're not going to find you. And I see so many skeptics putting good content that is good for outreach on YouTube and not taking these few extra steps. You go to all the trouble of making an hour-long video and then you don't put tags on it.
Are you talking to us?
Well, we started doing it recently.
I hear this all the time.
We started tagging our own stuff and making sure we post the show notes on a regular basis. And the one other tip I'm going to leave you, if you go to the next slide, there's a cool new iPhone app. If you're not aware of it, there's 2 YouTube iPhone apps now. There's the regular one where you just watch stuff. And there's a new one called Studio that if you have a YouTube channel with videos in it, you can get real-time results. I assume most people know that the numbers on Google lag behind. So, like, for instance, when you see a video that's going viral, if you see it on the first day, often it'll say 301. Have you ever noticed that? Like on the first day of one of those Weird Al videos last week, if you see it near the end of the day, it'll say 301 views. It's like, why 301? Well, it's because Yahoo has some anti-fraud mechanisms in there, so they don't want to show you the numbers until those have kicked in. So they don't want to show you the numbers until the next day, because people will try to game it. Because if they can game it and get that number to surge, then their video will pop to the top in YouTube, and they don't want people trying to game it. So they automatically throttle the count early on, and it means that count lags behind all the time as they're double-checking or however their algorithm works. But the YouTube app shows you more up-to-date numbers, so you can actually see what's going on. If it's your video, you can see what's going on today. And this is the graph. It's a bar graph, but this is the graph over the weekend from the 14th to the 20th, and as you can see, the top 2 lines in that graph are 480,000 views.
I had no idea we had that many audience members. 600,000
views. Yeah, I wish we had that many views for this. But yeah, about 500,000 views on Saturday and 500,000 views on Sunday for a dumb 12-year-old 1.5-minute video that I threw up just so I could link to it on Skeptic History. And hopefully some people noticed the What's the Harm link in the comments or in the description of it. I certainly didn't make any money out of it because it's not my video to make money on.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
I thought about doing that, but YouTube will slap you down if you do that. If you turn the ads on a video that you don't own and they catch you doing it, they will get very angry with you. So I didn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
We have to punch someone on this show.
Yeah, we need to get someone here who can punch. Although it's kind of hard to hard to punch someone through a camera.
Yeah.
So. Eve, can you go upstairs and punch Bob?
I don't know if that would work. I mean, none of us are
No.
Buzz Aldrin.
A live
Yeah.
reenactment
Yeah.
in Wisconsin.
Yeah, we could do a reenactment of the Buzz video.
I was in LA one time, and we so wanted to go over to that hotel. And
We apparently
By the way, that Rodeo Drive's in Beverly Hills. not
Oh,
Hollywood.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
we apparently
Wish
drove
we were
right
in
past
Hollywood.
there, Barb, and you
We
didn't
did.
say, Bob, hop out, and I'm gonna fake punch you, which
I
is
didn't.
something that
No.
we
You
clearly
missed
should have.
an opportunity to punch Bob.
I know. Yep, you
Yeah.
snooze, you lose, lady.
By then, I just wanted to get where we were going.
That's true. Oh yeah, because traffic is apparently not that great.
It was,
Yeah.
pretty bad.
Yes. Okie doke. Thanks, Tim, for that story. That's kind of cool. And an opportunity to put more buzz on the YouTube is good. So, in more ways than one. So some other guys next. Oh, it's me. So, I play the little cranky music in the background, and I can be cranky about robots and stuff. I only got 2 stories this week, but they're interesting ones. And I'm going to put this picture up because this is just the creepiest thing ever. Ta-da! That's a virtual guy. It's actually a virtual...
Looks like Tin Ham. No?
No,
You put
Okay.
a beard on him.
I can't. I wish I could. I wish it was one of those softwares where I could just start, putting Fu Manchus on him and stuff like that, and glasses and... No. This is one of the virtual interrogators. Bob is drawing on the picture right now. I don't think it's going to show up, Bob.
Oh,
No,
rats!
I don't think so, but nice try. Yes, there's a organization called the National Center for Credibility Assessment. It is an organization that is not only in charge with training security investigators for the federal government. If you want to get a security clearance in this country, you have to go through an investigation process. And one of the things they do is interview you. Well, this organization has been working on a replacement for their human interrogators. That is a virtual interrogator. Now, I keep using the word interrogator, but it's a credibility assessment, I guess they would call it, or something like that. And they did a study. They actually did a study. They built a prototype of this thing, and I don't have the number of people that they tested, but they took basic trainees from the U.S. Army as quote-unquote volunteer subjects, which should be quoted, and they gave them mock national security clearance interviews. And they were not told until the last minute that it was going to be done by a robot. So this virtual face, which is deliberately, deliberately professional looking, so clean shaven and tie, and racially ambiguous. So they try to eliminate those variables as influences.
It's whiter than hell.
Mm,
No?
It's a black
It's
and white
ambiguous.
It's a black and white
photo,
picture, so you can't really
Ambiguous.
tell. And the hair is kind of ambiguous as well. So
yeah.
they tried to go for average facial features. So whether they succeeded or not, that's not my judgment. But that's what they were trying to do. And they asked a lot of the same questions, and the software would respond to their answers. Like I said, there's no video of this, so I don't know how well they did it. And it would ask questions that led from answers. And they compared this to regular interviews that were done the normal way by humans. And the other thing is that they had it doesn't say that they were connected to a lie detector machine, but they did have they were measuring their cardiographic and electrothermal responses, which is heat and skin. So the same old things that they try to measure to detect your level of anxiety during an interview. And the results were interesting. Apparently, from this particular study, they found that we are more likely to tell the truth to a virtual interrogator than a human one. Now, they don't speculate on why that is. But on particular types of questions and particular types of honest answers, things related to alcohol use or things related to emotional problems or mental health problems, apparently there were a much more willingness to volunteer that information from what they were studying than with a human interviewer. Now, things like drug use and crime, they didn't see a significant difference between the two. But these are the kind of questions they ask, I guess. Now, I was curious because they said there was something. I got to find the term here. There's a particular psychological response that they were trying to get. And I was hoping Barb could help me out with this. Something to do with sensing the presence of another sentient being or sentient person, and that affects our psychology or affects our responses. Is something you've heard of?
I'm not familiar with the term that
prescience.
fits that.
Prescience?
No, it's no. There's no C in there. It's PRESENCE. Presence.
I'm not familiar with a term like that. I mean, there's a lot of research on that. There's a lot of research on whether or not you can tell somebody's standing behind you if you have absolutely no input and so forth. But
yeah,
is it theory
I'm not
of
familiar
mind
with the specific
stuff?
term.
Yeah,
The theory of mind is about the hypothetical of how another person might think or feel. So that's it really doesn't have anything to do with sensing a presence. It's more like empathy.
Yeah.
Well, the article didn't explain it very well, and the paper is online, but it cost me $20 to get it, and it's behind a paywall. But it doesn't go into what they meant by that, I guess.
If you ask,
we have terms for everything, by the way.
Yeah.
If you ask nicely on Twitter, a lot of times people will send you PDFs.
Maybe I'll do that in the future.
I don't know where they come from.
We have terminology for absolutely everything, and usually multiple terms, because somebody didn't do a literature review well enough to know that somebody else has already named that phenomenon. So yeah, there's got to be a term. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
This reminds me of that bit you mentioned a minute ago about how people would open up to the robot, and they wouldn't open up to a human. There was an interesting bit on the media about the U.S. Army recruitment
Yeah, I was
website
thinking that
has a chat bot that speaks to you. It has a recorded voice, but it can respond to questions. It's like an Eliza thing, but it's custom built for the types of questions that recruits that would come into an Army recruiting session would ask. And they found they continually research what people type into it and how it answers and put new answers in to answer the questions.
Interesting.
And they found that people would ask questions of the bot that they were too embarrassed to ask a recruiter in person.
It sounds like a similar effect. Now, I'd be curious. What I'm thinking of is that they didn't mention who built this. Obviously, they might have built it in-house. They might have hired somebody, but I'm wondering if there's some kind of relationship with a government contractor who builds these types of systems that might have worked with that as well. And maybe the study was born out of, experimenting with this kind of system and saying, well, maybe we should find out how well this really works and have some data to back this up, which would be interesting. So I'm going to keep an eye on that because I think it's interesting. Ever since, what was the movie? Elysium. You guys see Elysium?
Yeah.
Where they have robots doing a lot of jobs that would be government jobs. Like they had police force robots, but they also had robots that did customer service. And thinking about telephone bots for customer service and like that one that was turned out to not really be a customer service.
It was more cyborgy.
Yes, more cyborgy. It seems like that's gonna. Yes, that may be where we're going, and it would be frustrating. Hey, look at that! Someone just posted in the Twitter. It was Travis Estrella just posted on his Twitter feed the interrogator with a beard, which is awesome. So I'm gonna make sure I grab that. And yes, and the fact that it looks a little bit like there you go. It looks like Ken Ham. There you go. So that's even more scary. So maybe he's working with the evil robots. It's all a front. He's a lizard person, isn't he? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, my next story.
Come
Well,
from no
first off,
monkey.
I wanted to point out the doom aspect of this, and that obviously robots are going to start taking all the positions of power, and I mean we're going to find out all of our secrets, and we're going to give it to them freely. So there you go. So we're doomed because we can't lie to the robots apparently. This other one is particularly important in your defense against the future robotic horde. One of the weak spots, we've seen a lot of walking robots lately. We've seen Big Dog and all of its brothers and sisters, and some they had the DARPA challenge last year with all the walking robots, and clearly walking is a hard thing for robots. So it could be a potential weakness on their part if they're a walking robot. You take out one of its legs, and then you can probably get away pretty quickly because it will have to figure out how to walk with one less limb. Well, in the case of hexapods, which are robots that have 6 legs, these guys have figured out a way to, look at that. See, that's a hexapod. This is a simple little hexapod, just off-the-shelf servos and little parts and stuff. I think I might jump forward a bit to where it's walking. They figured a way to kind of build a system where the robot can have essentially a database of all kinds of different ways of locomotion based on its known kind of shape. But not know really which one works best or which one doesn't, and just kind of pick and choose them. And as it figures out how well it's moving because of progress measurement, it weights them as whether or not they are good or bad. Now, in the case of if this poor little guy here, which I feel so sorry for him limping along. Yes, he's got a broken leg. So in the case of damaging a leg, what he'll do is he'll use some of the information he's already got to try different particular gaits, they call them.
And while he's doing that, you break the rest of his legs.
Well, that's true. It does. The way they've got this structured, it takes, they say 2 minutes is the maximum time it takes to figure out the best method of locomotion, but it says that it could do it as fast as 20 seconds, but still, that's delay. So you smash more than one leg, I guess we're getting at. But it's still interesting and spells doom for people who aren't smart enough to mash more than one leg. So there you go.
So in the case, does this only work for hexa?
If you're only using 10% of your brain, you're screwed against these
Well,
things.
in the case of a robot, they may only be using 10% of their brain because they may be partitioning it or something, some kind of.
Well, there's a whole class of research on what they call evolutionary algorithms, where instead of writing code, you give the piece of code, or in this case, the brain of this robot, some basic skills, like here's how you move the motors.
Yep.
Here's how many motors you have. You can do this. You can do that. And here's how you measure your progress. And then you let it try everything, and you measure progress. And then everything that it tries that works better, you encourage more of, and you throw away the versions of the program that didn't do as well. And with enough iterations, you evolve a control program for that robot that is super smart and knows how to deal with losing legs and all sorts of things that maybe you didn't even anticipate.
And it still seems to me like there's a weakness in their approach that they have to come up with this database of understanding of its own locomotion and all the possibles. They essentially create a huge data set to choose from up front, and they do that as offline processing and then put it into the brain. So this is similar to a lot of AI approaches that have been around since like the 80s. Where
However,
it's
if you want a robot in the Ministry of Silly Walks,
Yes.
There you
This
go.
would,
Nice.
yeah, and it's got quite a few. If you watch this video all the way through, there are some that are quite wacky.
Yep.
Silly? I don't know. Wacky. Oh, and this one I'm not doing. So there you go. That's it. That's it. We got
It's a
we got
robot
the
not appearing
creepy-
in this program.
Yes, that's robot not appearing in this program. So we got the creepy robot that's you're gonna tell all your secrets to, and the fact that robots aren't going to be lame and they're going to keep running for you if they're trying to kill you. So there you go. That's this week's Doom technology. So there you go. What's next? Oh, into the show, I guess.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So let's do the last bits. First off, who got the trivia question?
I don't think anybody got the trivia question. It was too hard. People guessed Bluetooth things and
Blake.
60 years ago?
examination table, and
That's also Blake.
I didn't see too many other guesses. But the fact that it was invented by a chiropractor was a bit of a dodge because it doesn't really have anything to do with chiropractic.
Yep.
Can I
Was
guess?
it some sort of voice
Sure.
box?
Polygraph?
Oh, you are on the right track. You are close. You are very close.
Yep.
It is an electrical device.
Biofeedback.
Oh, you're getting closer. You're getting closer. You're
I
almost
can't
there.
guess 'cause I
That
know the answer.
Scientology thingy?
The e-meter?
That's it. It was.
Yay,
The,
ding.
This is how you... Okay, so you're measuring your progress based on Tim's reaction.
how
Very
high
good.
my voice goes.
Yes.
That's actually a very primitive e-meter works.
Yes.
It's true,
You
yeah.
hold the thing.
Yeah, actually it does.
True.
The Tim
They do.
E.
Scientology does have something they call the tone scale. U.S. patent 2,684,670 was granted on July 27, 1954, to a chiropractor named Volney Matheson, who happened to be friends with one L. Ron Hubbard, who then got hold of this device and thought it was really cool, and made it into the Scientology e-meter.
Awesome. And nobody got it. So nobody gets the prize. We don't have to figure out how to
There's
deliver it
nothing.
either. So there you go. And coincidentally, 268-4670 was L. Ron Hubbard's telephone number. No, I'm just kidding. And let's see. I'm going to have to say in the future, Blake is not allowed to guess the videos because he generally gets them within the first 30 seconds of the show. And one of them stopped playing, but yeah, the one on my left is the trailer for Pacific Rim, which is, I enjoyed it. Big freaking robots pounding on.
What's not to love?
Which are from
The fact that it sucked the moon from the sky. I'm
Shut up, you. You just don't understand. You just don't understand.
The love between a man and his robot and his giant robot.
Yes,
But
and the
this-
other one was actually it was almost the entire. There was a Voltron movie back in the 80s, and yes, and it was almost the entire movie playing while we watched the show. So if you wanted to watch that the entire episode, you could watch that whole movie, and it ended clearly because it's not showing the ads.
I really thought the Pacific Rim was a complete frickin' ripoff of Voltron and about 500 other movies.
Well, there is a reason why they are together tonight.
Is it really a robot if it's not making its own decisions or anything like that?
Well, that's a good question.
That is a good question. Because most of the robots I do talk about are actually not making their own decisions.
That's a discussion question.
Well, in Pacific Rim,
that is the homework
most
for class.
Most people who are nerds about this would call the things in Pacific Rim mechs.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Just because they walk does not mean they aren't a powered construction equipment. Okay, so there's that. We got book time, and we have some announcements. A couple announcements.
Oh, you didn't say what the other one was. The other video.
Voltron movie.
Oh,
Voltron
that
Pacific Rim.
Okay, I misunderstood that.
Two eras of similar things.
So this week, Tim and Eve have segments on this week's Skepticality.
We do.
Yes, according to this. Are you agreeing, or are you shocked?
We
'Cause
do.
one of
No,
these-
I'm agreeing.
Okay.
Go listen to it. It's a great show. Got a famous person on the interview.
Yeah.
Guy from Nat Geo.
Cool. And the other one is I was actually a guest on another podcast called Mythwits
Cool.
that a couple of my friends do. It's a kind of a nerdy, geeky thing. It's very similar to this format, and it's a Google Hangout, so it's video. That was on Monday. Should be posted by now. I will put the link in the show notes.
I actually have another announcement that I forgot to put in.
Okay, go for it.
The Atlanta Star Party is coming up again. Those of you who have ever attended DragonCon know that this is a fixture for the last 5 years, I think, 6 years.
6. At least.
This year it's on August 28th, as it always is, the Thursday before DragonCon. There's usually not much going on at DragonCon on Thursday night. Usually there's 1 or 2 things going on. So we have this Star Party, and it's a charity event. It's raising money this year for Alzheimer research and for CosmoQuest. We've got Pamela Gay and Nicole Gallucci from CosmoQuest and another astronomer by the name of Derek Demeter, and they're all going to give talks or presentations and stuff. There's going to be a silent auction, and I've heard some of the really cool items that they've gotten donated that are going to be auctioned off. So you don't want to miss that. And the main way they raise money is they sell tickets, and you get tickets to the bar, and there's food and stuff, so it's well worth it. But you can get $5 off your ticket if you use my secret code, which is my Twitter handle, KRELNIK, and the year 2014. So Krelnick 2014. If you punch that in, there's a spot on the form when you register. You get $5 off.
Aren't you glad you stayed with us until the very end?
Yes, you should stay to the end. So Go do that. It's atlantastarparty.com, and we'll put all this stuff in the show notes.
So for future reference, if you stay to the end, we'll pay you. One more quick thing that actually Bob showed me this, and because I missed it, I hadn't watched AstronomyCast. There's another podcast that some of us like. A guy named Fraser Kane is kickstarting the robot apocalypse.
Basically, yeah. He's raising money for an X Prize to make self-replicating robots, which dooms all of us. It is such a bad idea. But the idea of the tie-in, the space tie-in, is that wouldn't it be great if you could send a robot that went out into space and then could assemble a new robot on site? And that's
Yep. Now, I got Bob on there because I hadn't a chance to go look at this yet, but I will, and I will. If there's anything more detailed, I will definitely point it out. It sounds awesome, cool, and I mean, this is like the plan in my back of my head. If I was evil, which clearly I'm not.
That'd be a great 21st century movie where the evil Dr. Evil crowdsources the funds and then just taunts people. You paid me to do this.
Yeah, so we crowdsource these robots, these self-replicating robots. We send them to Mars. Mars turns into like this Matrix esque robot city. And then comes back and kills us all. So there you go. Yeah. Not only is that a great master plan, that is also a movie plot.
Those robots can't be saved,
No, they will all go to hell, though.
Brian, there's an announcement in the questions.
Announcement in the questions. Oh, yeah. Friend of the show, Amanda Duval. Some of you guys might have met her at TAM. She was at TAM. I was not. She is doing this thing. Was Skeptic Action Project? Anybody know about that? Because I hadn't a chance to go look at this.
Yeah, it's a Twitter account, and it's basically calling attention sites that skeptics should know about. And of course, there's Web of Trust where you rate sites, and then there's Rebutter where you connect things to their rebuttal. And Skeptic Action kind of feeds into both of those and says, "Hey, look, here's a site." And sometimes they tweet good sites, and sometimes they tweet woo sites, but basically it's like, here are more websites that maybe if you're a skeptic you might need to know about, and if you use Web of Trust, look at this site, decide whether it's good or bad, and vote appropriately.
Okay, and actually I do know the Facebook group, and it's kind of like that. Yep. Awesome, thanks, Tim. So we're going really long, but we're gonna do book time. Barb, you want to go first?
Sure.
Go for it. Gives me lots of time.
Thus, the problems that are more characteristic of men than women, such as drug abuse, narcissism, rape, and other forms of violence, are rarely related to an inherent male psychology the way women's behavior is. When men have problems, it's because of their upbringing, personality, or environment. When women have problems, it's because of something in their very psyche. When men have problems, society tends to look outward for explanations. When women have problems, society looks inward.
You're just saying that because... Oh, never mind. Go ahead, Eve.
You made that joke because of your upbringing.
Ah.
One of the most striking apparent instances of extrasensory perception is the precognitive experience, when a person has a compelling perception of an imminent disaster, the death of a loved one, or a communication from a long-lost friend, and the predicted event then transpires. Many of who have had such experiences report that the emotional intensity of the precognition and its subsequent verification provide an overpowering sense of contact with another realm of reality. I've had such an experience myself. Many years ago, I awoke in the dead of night in a cold sweat with the certain knowledge that a close relative had suddenly died. I was so gripped with the haunting intensity of the experience that I was afraid to place a long-distance phone call for fear the relative would trip over the telephone cord or something and make the experience a self-fulfilling prophecy. In fact, the relative was alive and well, and whatever psychological roots the experience may have, it was not a reflection of an imminent event in the real world.
Okay. Just going in line. Go ahead, Bob.
Montgomery's promise to Eisenhower that, quote, "you will hear no more on the subject of command from me," had hardly been made before it was broken. Those big arrows on war room maps may have pointed toward the Ruhr and beyond, but his sharpest darts were aimed at the Supreme Commander.
Supreme Commander. Go ahead, Tim.
Nice. Myth 1, new screening technology is making us safer. No, it's just costing us more and more money. According to a December 21st, 2010 investigative report by the Washington Post's Dana Hedgebeth, the massive push to fix airport security in the United States after the attacks of September 11th led to a gold rush in technology contracts for an industry that mushroomed almost overnight. Since it was founded in 2001, the TSA has spent roughly $14 billion in more than 20,000 transactions with dozens of contractors. Hedgebeth also cites a Government Accountability Office finding that the TSA has not conducted a risk assessment or a cost-benefit analysis or established quantifiable performance measures on its new technologies. As a result, TSA does not have assurance that its efforts are focused on the highest priority security needs.
The first known haunting of Harp's Ferry might be that of the Phantom Army. This area saw action not only in the Civil War, but also just after the Revolutionary War as well. In 1798, France was threatening to attack the fledgling nation, and General Pinckney is stationed at Fort Harper's Ferry. His men set up camp on a ridge above what is now High Street. The place was still called Camp Hill because of that event. Our place is still called Camp Hill. Nothing much happened, so General Pinckney, which I have a hard time saying that, marched his men to keep them in shape. They stomped up and down the hill each day. The drums and a fife played. But then cholera began to ravage the troops, and the men grew ill and collapsed. So they all died of cholera. I'm skipping forward. Over the years, the people of Harper's Ferry have reportedly experienced the
I was just going to say you
Camp Hill.
skipped a part, but that's okay.
Yes. They all died of cholera. And now they march up and down and they hear drums and flute in Harper's Ferry. I have never heard this. I'm actually quite disappointed. Been to Harper's Ferry. Go ahead, Barb.
Miss Measure of Woman by Carol Tavris.
Tavris. Hey.
Yay.
Yay.
Yay?
Super.
Yay.
Carl
It is all
Sagan
Carol Tavris.
broke his brain.
Baroka's brain.
Broke his brain. He broke his brain. Go, Bob.
I had Rick Atkinson's Guns at Last Light, which is the War in Western Europe, 1944 to 45, Volume 3 of the Liberation Trilogy. It is so readable and awesome. Look up Rick Atkinson.
Great.
It's really good.
Atkinson.
It's so good.
Didn't he do that diet?
No, that was
Different guy.
Atkins. Never mind. I have this story.
I pulled a Bob and cheated. I used something that wasn't a book. I used Skeptical Briefs.
Hey.
You
Look at that.
probably all know
You
this.
pulled Skeptical Briefs?
I read from Skeptical Briefs. So you all know Skeptical Inquirer,
Yep.
CSI's magazine,
Heard of it.
right?
Yeah.
It's on the newsstands. Da 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 da. Did you also know they have another paper newsletter that has deeper other stuff that doesn't fit in the magazine? And if you give them some money, they will send you this every so often, and it's got a lot of cool skeptic stuff in there.
Awesome. My book is by Patty A. Wilson. Is Haunted West Virginia. I was in West Virginia a few weeks back. I went to the Green Mount Observatory actually, and I spent a weekend without a cell phone because we're in the radio quiet zone where there's there's no contact at all. It felt really weird. It was awesome in a way. And I picked this up in one of the gift shops. It has all kinds of neat little stories in it. I like this kind of stuff. So there you go. Anything else? Anything on the tweets we have to add? No, we're good. We're over.
I think we're done.
So now it's time to dance.
Yay!
Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of whatstheharm.net, Skeptical Humanities, myself, ICBS Everywhere, and Doubtful News. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com, and our theme music is by Music Ant and Muse with Mission. Thank you all for watching.